This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Gotta love it live. It's always a beautiful thing. Ira, good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm in play-in mode. I'm in all or nothing mode. So either we'll have a winning interview or we'll be done for the season. So we will see. Today, interesting, perfect timing this week. We'll come back in our RedRecover.com Inside the Paint show on Wednesday, talk about the first play-in game, see if they're playing Boston, if they're waiting to play Toronto or Chicago. Interesting times here.
Well, at least they got the opponent that makes you feel like they can survive, which that to me at least is a little, makes me feel a little better at least because they can actually win this game. If, it might have been another matchup, I might have been concerned a little bit, but with Atlanta, this one's winnable at least.
Yeah, but you know what, Big O? Isn't Trae Young due? They held him down last season. They held him down in the playoffs. They held him down this season. Are we talking progression to the mean? Let's face it. This is not a playoff series. Remember, last year the Hawks won a game against the Heat in the playoff series. This season, the Heat won a game against the Heat in the season series. This just takes one win in the play-in. Trae Young doesn't have to dominate a series. He has to have one moment. He has to come out and from the logo hit a couple of three-pointers at the start of the game, and everything changes. So I'm just wondering, can you constantly contain Trae Young, or will he have a moment? That's what scares me about this game, is that Trae Young still is capable of a 50-burger against anyone. So now we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, but the thing is that stuff has happened less and less often, right? I mean, that's not like it's something that's more common with him now. And I think with Miami, they know it's just one game. So you can get their concentration into one game. If it's a series, well, then you can have your letdown in games 2 or 4 or whatever, and you allow them to get away with the game. I think, the intensity will be heightened at that moment because they know it's all or nothing. So I kind of like their chances in this kind of a scenario.
Yeah, I just hope there's not an arrogance. There's been an arrogance all season that, come on, Big O. We've done this now on our Acura Pembroke Pines report this last summer. We were just one game away from the NBA Finals. We were just one win from the NBA Finals. We were just one shot from the NBA Finals. So you have people like Orlando Alzugaray on the Big O show and the Acura Pembroke Pines report going, this is a perfect matchup. The Heat are fine. If the Heat buy into that, they're screwed for this reason.
You're right.
Because if they have a misstep, the latest line I checked at Caesars was 4.5-point Heat favorite. If they have a misstep in this game, they're looking at a Friday game against either a Chicago team they're 0-3 against or a Raptors team they're 1-3 against. It gets harder. I hope Eric Spoelstra right now, as they're meeting at Kaseya Center, formerly FTX Arena, is telling his guys, hey, let's not lose focus now. So the question is this. Jimmy Butler's been off the last 2 games. He's been in the changing room, sort of like a Batman or someone, maybe getting into his gear. Will playoff Jimmy Butler decide it's important enough in the play-in round to come out and be playoff Jimmy Butler? These guys can't wait anymore. The entire narrative of the season is based on what happens over the next 10 days or so. Get into the playoffs, step forward. But no one's holding 7 big foam fingers going, hey, we're number 7. No one celebrates that. But play a competitive first-round series, you might even convince the biggest cynic out there, Orlando Alzugaray, that maybe the season wasn't a waste.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if I would call it a waste. I just think they are what they are. It's not a waste. It's just you kind of found out the reality of Kyle Lowry and the reality of some of these young guys that you have around you, and the reality that maybe Bam really isn't a franchise player because he couldn't keep the pedal to the metal all the way through the season. And so it's just kind of reality. It's not so much a wasted season. I just think it wasn't put together well. And so now they're just paying the price for it now, unfortunately, and they're going to be paying the price for it for a couple of years too, because it's going to take them a couple of years to get out of this mess. And part B from all of this is I don't think you're ever going to get to acquire that superstar you needed next to Jimmy, unfortunately. And then that's really the way this experiment would have ended up working out. God bless Jimmy. He did all he could possibly do. There's no more that he can do. I mean, the man played to more than to his potential and did as much as he could for the franchise, but he needed another Batman next to him, and they never found the other Batman. And that's really what this whole story is all about, is that the Heat never really found that next superstar next to Jimmy Butler.
And so, even starting tomorrow, the players themselves can redeem Pat Riley and Andy Ellisberg. If Kyle Lowry steps forward with a big game, when you and I talk on Wednesday, you'll say, okay, maybe this is the start of something. If Bam Adebayo steps up against the challenge of Clint Capella and steps up with a big double-double game, maybe you'll say, hey, he's finally met that challenge. So if Kevin Love has his moment, instead of saying, hey, the Heat could have gotten Sadiq Bey at the trading deadline, maybe this works out. The players are positioned to redeem Pat Riley, Andy Ellisberg, Adam Simon in the front office, Mickey Arison, Nick Arison. Then you get to the other point, and we'll talk about this further down the week, depending on what happens, is I still believe, and I know you're going to hate me for this, but we're going to carry the full summer through on this, Big O. There are guys out there. Brad Beal didn't make the playoffs. And at some point, he might wake up on a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Saturday going, this sucks. I want to be in the playoffs. I'm watching these games for days and weeks now. Might happen. Damian Lillard last night after Portland was done for the season said, I am not here for players who are going to grow for the next 2 or 3 seasons. Maybe that door opens up a little bit. So you have that possibility also. The Luka Doncic thing is not going away. The Mavericks totally screwed up with their roster. If they really talk, they're going to bring back Kyrie Irving.
He doesn't have the ammunition to make any of those trades.
I think the Heat have the ammunition to make both a Beal and a Lillard deal.
Ira, there's 5 other teams that are going to have better ammunition than Miami. Miami's ammunition isn't shit.
But Miami's ammunition is if a franchise player wants to get somewhere, then I think that a franchise player can look. Kevin Durant, there might have been a better offer, seemingly was, than Phoenix, but the Nets knew he wanted to go somewhere. You had to placate him. I'm just saying that there will always be names out there like it. And you know what, Big O? I'm going to disagree with you. I don't know how far you want to go with deals, whether it's Tyler, whether it's Bam, whether it's a future first-round pick, whether it's this season's first-round pick that'll be in the teens. But you do have the possibility of crafting, I'll put it this way, Big O, okay? At least a competitive package. A matter of fact, I think for the first time in years you can, because there is a value in Tyler Hero. There is a value in Bam Adebayo. There is a value in having an unencumbered first-round pick.
Part of any deal before. That's the thing. Bam was untouchable. That's different. If you're throwing in Bam, then you have a chance at bringing back a star. But if you're not throwing in Bam, I don't expect you to. I don't think teams are lined up saying, oh, yeah, give me Tyler Hero. Yeah, he's going to put us over the top. I don't think anybody is saying
desperate teams do desperate things. I'm saying you have to wait and see. Look, I know last summer was disappointing with the Kevin Durant thing. And they overplayed their hand and they paid for it and they didn't bring in certain players and they kept flexibility and they stayed under the hard cap. I get all of that. But it's going to start again. The Heat are at least going to be dreamers because that's what they always are. And they have found a way. Look, Lowry did not work, but they did outbid the Knicks and the Pelicans and other teams. That's why they were investigated for tampering.
Ira, that's not an impressive race that you won.
But you won. You won.
No, Ira. See, that's where you and I are going to go in completely 2 different roads. When you tell me, hey, I was successful, getting Kyle Lowry, I'm going to tell you, big shit, dude. You did nothing. You're a clown for getting Kyle Lowry. I knew he sucked. So why did you get him? There's nothing to celebrate about Kyle Lowry, man. Winning the Kyle Lowry sweepstakes is like, I don't know. It's a vacation in Cuba or a vacation in Hawaii. So I'm going to Cuba. Wow, I'm stuck with Kyle Lowry. That's what it feels like. I'm straddled with communism.
Right, I'll let you and Omar get into that. Better debate for Omar after what he posted.
To brag about Kyle Lowry is just
no. But I'm not saying that. I'm not talking about the player. I'm talking about that the Heat, when they get in these situations with other teams also interested, have had a degree and a level of success when the player is moved. When the player's not moved, like Durant wasn't moved during last summer, I understand it. Beal wasn't moved last summer, I understand it. But when there's a market,
it's been 13 years. It's been a long time. They haven't landed. They haven't landed the big fishes anymore.
Jimmy,
it's been a long time.
Jimmy Butler, 2019.
Jimmy didn't have a lot of options. There weren't a lot of options for Jimmy.
But they landed him. But they landed him, and they went to the finals, and they came within a game of the finals, and he's been fantastic.
They've overachieved with Jimmy because they've got the best coach in the NBA. That's why they've overachieved.
I give Jimmy a lot of that credit. Jimmy had his best. Jimmy might have had his best season this year.
Coached his ass off. But overall, let's be honest, Jimmy did not have 10 teams lined up for him. There weren't even 2 or 3 really lined up to get the kind of contract Miami gave him. Come on.
There were. The LA teams included.
What quality team, what big time franchise was going to give him the same contract, Ira?
The Lakers and the Clippers were both involved at the time also. They were, but they were. So were the Mavericks. There were teams that were interested.
The Lakers are a clown show. They're no longer.
Well, okay, clown shows are interested then. You can put it that way. I still am not at the point where I'm giving up on this front office and I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt. But again, I'm
not saying to give up on them or anything, but let's not make it sound like it's constantly being landed. They haven't landed the big fish in 13 years. In 13 years. And the Jimmy one was pretty much, they were the only option for him. He didn't really have a lot of good teams that he could go and be the man, because that's what he wanted to be the man. There weren't a lot of options for him unless he wanted to go to a really bad franchise, overall. Man, that to me is the problem with all of this, is trying to get to that point. And I think you're at a point now where Jimmy's, kind of like, he's into the back nine of his career.
I don't know about that yet. Orlando, I wrote a story today at the Sun Sentinel. Jimmy Butler's stats and metrics this year are career level. Shooting percentage, win shares, box score plus minus, all the metrics that actually mean something. Jimmy's at a career level now. So when you know what? So I would say it this way. He
doesn't play enough. If he can produce those numbers and play 78 games, then maybe you won't be a 7 seed. But see, if he's not physically fit to play 78 games, 80 games to get you up to the 3rd or 4th spot, then, it's take the bad with the good. See, that you're spinning the stats, and then I can tell you the reality. The reality is he missed so many. You lost a bunch of games because he missed games. And so you lost playoff positioning because he missed games. So really, you can say the stats look great, but they don't look great when you're missing a 4th of the season, my man. That's unacceptable. I'm paying you.
He didn't quite miss a quarter. He missed 17 games. Right.
Only 75% of the season? No, dude, that's not right. That's not right.
I think that's where the league is under the current scheduling, though. That's what guys play, which is what we talked about, which is lamentable. But it's almost like this, Big O. Would you rather have a Jimmy Butler and his numbers for 65 games, or would you rather have Mikal Bridges and his numbers for he played 83 games this year because of his trade from Phoenix? So that's what you have to weigh, is those two things also. The Heat got a great player when they added Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, so far in the new contract, 1 year into the deal, has played at the top of his game. He's not the problem this season. The ancillary supporting pieces, the Vincents, the Struces, the Caleb Martins, the guys who've dropped down a little bit, that's been the problem in overrating those guys.
The failure of the front office and ownership not to land another superstar, not to put themselves in a position to land another superstar. That's been the problem. Jimmy Butler is not the problem, never has been the problem. He has played his ass off. You can't ask any more from him and Spo. But I have to ask more from Riley in the front office, and Kyle Lowry is brother. There's no success there. That's such a failure. That's such an embarrassment of a contract. That's almost as bad as Sasha Danilovic.
No, okay? Sasha Danilovic was paid peasant money at the time.
Danilovic and Whiteside, right there.
Yeah, right. Whiteside, you certainly could look at, and I'm still not so sure that the Duncan Robinson contract's not right up there also.
Jesus Christ. What was he yesterday? 3 of 11.
Hey, he made 3. Yay. He scored 20.
Total
Season
6 of
high.
14. Holy shit. That's been their failure, is that they weren't able to get that other star. That's where this whole experiment. And then here's Spo in the designing something and trying to figure out something and get the max out of whatever he's got out there, man. I mean, he's a monster. UD, great night last night. That was kind of like the way Wade ended his career. Perfect night for him. He was even showing Duncan how to shoot threes.
It was, you know what? I knew that there would be emotion there. That could not have played out any better. The situation and everything, and giving him his free reign and saving guys for the playoffs and doing it then ahead of the playoffs so you don't have to create an awkward moment for him. Yeah, Udonis said the past 2 years, because of the pandemic and the way things went, he knew he couldn't craft a moment. He couldn't create it. He couldn't build up to that. But the way that played out, with Dwayne sitting courtside, with the players feeding him, with that alley-oop pass from Duncan Robinson, it absolutely played out perfectly. I didn't see that coming. I thought it'd be, okay, older guy gets on the court, please don't embarrass yourself. And it turned into something far different. Look, they had the right opponent. They weren't even playing the Orlando Magic. They were playing the Lakeland Magic. What Udonis Haslem showed yesterday is he's still fully capable of playing in the G League at his age, at 42. But you know what? They found the moment. They crafted the moment by bringing him off the bench. They got him the ovation. They got him the amount of minutes he was able to play. It really was a special moment, and now you move on.
By the way, was that the worst starting five you've ever seen in Heat history?
Well, I'll give you the other thing, which we didn't even realize when we were watching. The Heat had 111 bench points. That's an NBA record. Think about that. This team that couldn't score all year scored 111 points off the bench. It was a token starting night. They rolled out the guys. They got him some cardio. They get him back in practice today for something more meaningful. So, yeah, it was a weird game. But that's the problem with the NBA is the end of the season, it just doesn't mean as much. You've got to protect your players. Every team around the league sat their stars, except those teams in meaningful games like we saw in the Western Conference. So, yeah, the Heat crafted something special out of something that otherwise would have been totally meaningless.
Yeah, the NBA's got a real problem because, we've always kind of jokingly said, the regular season in the NBA doesn't mean that much. Nowadays, oh my God, it's gotten even worse now with all the, resting and all that crap. Although
I will say this, the play-in tournament created a greater sense of meaning than it would have been otherwise. So, Big O, as bad as you thought it was, if there wasn't this play-in and the Heat would have thought, okay, we're in, they would have sat guys more. If Atlanta would have thought that, they would have sat guys more. The play-in at least is getting them to have at least a few more meaningful games. Look, I think Adam Silver did a great job. He created meaning out of nothing. He created meaning out of, we're number 7. That it meant something, or that Eric Reed on the broadcast can go, the Heat are playing for the top seed in the play-in. I mean, you just absolutely are crafting something there. And hey, they're Southeast Division champions. So even if they don't win anymore, they've already won a championship this season.
By the way, what's going to happen with the Dallas situation now that the league's going to look into them, looking like they're tanking? And it's really not that they're tanking. It's that they traded for Kyrie, right? Isn't that really what it is?
Well, that's what happened to them. But you know what? This is the almost, don't say, don't ask kind of thing. Everyone knows you're tanking. Don't announce you're sitting out a player before the game, after the first quarter, no matter what happens in a game that has meaning. Just pull Luka and saying, look, we didn't think he looked right. He looked tired. Dallas didn't play the wink-wink game that everyone else plays. It's like Fight Club. You can tank, but you can't talk about tanking. Dallas was a little bit too arrogant in their approach on Friday night.
He's gone, right? He's going to leave, right?
Kyrie?
I mean, yeah. I
think he stays for this reason. I think
you lose Jokic, right?
If you keep him, you have a chip that you could play with down the road during the 2 additional seasons Doncic is under contract. If you lose him, he's hard to replace. But here's the other part of it, Big O. Is there a market for Kyrie? Is anyone going to be bidding against Dallas?
Would you hang on? That's my point. Why would you, when you were saying, you hang on to him as a chip, I'm like, what kind of a chip are we talking about here, bro?
A salary chip. As a salary and someone you can move if you have to in a deal on a shorter contract because at least you have his bird rights. But, man, I don't know how any team – look, that's a Heat name. We've had that for years. And that's a Heat name that I've given you Beal and I've given you Lillard and I've given you Doncic, but I haven't given you that. As those listeners.
No.
Yeah, Orlando was just waving his hands for those just listening, and I agree with that. That, to me, if we read or hear from Woj or Shams or someone in July, Heat expressing interest in Kyrie Irving, that's when I'll come on our Acura Pembroke Pines and report and say, we've reached the point of desperation if that happens.
If I ever hear that the Heat are interested in Kyrie Irving, I swear to you, I'm going to say, yeah, I think Mickey needs to sell the team and Riley needs to retire. Then that's the only thing that will drive me to say that those two need to go. I would never say that at all, but Kyrie Irving might force me to do that. Even though I'm disappointed in both. They need to pick up their game. They're the ones that are dropping the ball here in the organization. But I still don't want them to go. But if they go Kyrie, yeah.
I mean, and that's the desperation line. Yeah.
Odell Beckham is our answer. I would lose my mind if you tell me Odell Beckham is the answer. So it's the same thing with Kyrie. So you agree with me? He's gone because, but although you were thinking you keep him as a chip, I think you have to let him go because I think it creates an even worse situation. That if you want to convince Doncic that he needs to stay, one, you need to let him go so you can open up that cap space, so you can try to lure another star in to convince him. Because if you keep him there, it pollutes the situation even more, and I think you end up losing Doncic automatically.
Yeah, I it's just a tough spot for Cuban because, again, they don't get his full salary because the cap situation, they'd only have a fraction of what Kyrie earns to replace him with. So you're saying you're going to bring in a Mike Conley level player or something like that. That's not going to get it done either, Big O. The players they let go, Spencer Dinwiddie would help more. The players they let go, Dorian Finney-Smith would help more. They were a playoff team when they had those players. That's why I think Doncic didn't play, because I don't think he can trust that front office anymore because they screwed him this year. They took a playoff team. They moved them out of the playoffs.
That is true. That is 100% true. It's hard to trust what the decisions being made above Luka Doncic if you're him. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. All right, follow him on Twitter at Ira Heapy. Catch his work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Ira will catch you on Wednesday with our Red Recover Inside the Paint show.
Yes, we will have the best Atlanta Hawks Miami Heat postgame show on all of radio, terrestrial or otherwise. 9 a.m. here, Kurt Heelan.
Win, please. All right, Ira. Thank you.
Thank you, Big O. Off to practice.
You got it. There you go. Off to practice, baby. Whew. They better win tomorrow, dude. They better win tomorrow. But I'm serious. It's just I would never want to hear about Kyrie Irving here. I would lose my mind. I would be so disappointed in Pat Riley and Mickey Harrison. I would have never been more disappointed in them ever unless they do that right there. I was very disappointed with Riley when he did the Whiteside deal. And then I was even more disappointed with Riley when I found out about the Dion Waiters deal. That he actually knew that he needed ankle surgery and still give him a 4-year contract. That's the kind of shit that I'm like, come on, Riles, this is not you, dude. And Kyle Lowry, this is not you. And they need to get back on track. And what screwed up, where they screwed up here was that they failed to get the other star next to Jimmy Butler. That's where they, failed miserably. Failed in a disgusting fashion. Okay? Like really bad. And you ruined the best years that you could possibly get out of Butler. And I love Ira, but this bullshit that, the efficiency, that don't mean shit to me when you can only play 75% of the season. And the reason why you've missed a quarter of the season is the reason why you've lost a lot of games. That doesn't do shit for me. Your efficiency doesn't do shit for me if I can't maximize it. So if I can only get your efficiency for a certain amount of games and not for a bunch of other games, then what does that do for me? This is why I agree with Jimmy Johnson when he says stats are for losers, because I can spin stats however you want. You see how I got his stats and I turned them around right away? Oh, no, his efficiency don't mean shit to me when it's only 75% of the season. Now, if Jimmy's playing with two other stars And while he's missing, two other stars are carrying the load and winning games like they had with the big three, then that's a whole different ball game. Because now you've got two stars, and Bam and Tyler are complementing the two stars while Jimmy's out. Notice how I'm not calling Bam or Tyler the stars, because they're not Bosch, they're not Shaq, they're not Alonzo Mourning, they're not Tim Hardaway, they're not LeBron James, they're not Dwayne Wade. We know stars, right? You know stars, right? I know stars. I know what a star looks like. You watch Matthew Tkachuk, that's an effing star. Okay? That's a star. A star says, get on my back. I'm taking you down the stretch. That's a star. Bam Adebayo is not a star. Tyler Hero can't even see stars. I know what a star looks like. A star's got cojones, right? A star imposes their will. So if you had that, then you can get away with Jimmy taking days off and games off. That's fine. Hey, Wade, you need it off? No problem. LeBron and Bosch will carry you. It's all good. Oh, LeBron's out? No problem. Wade, Bosch will carry you. No problem. LeBron and Wade, Shaq, Alonzo might be the most talented players that have ever played here, right? Yet Chris Bosh has the most important rebound, the most important block shot, and the most important assist in Heat history. Stars. I know what a star looks like. And that's where the Miami Heat failed. They failed to acquire the star next to Butler. And I said that from the second they got him. From the second they traded with Jimmy, I said, you better acquire another star or this trade won't mean shit. It'll be entertaining, and it has. And it's actually been more entertaining than I expected because the bubble run was amazing and last year's run was amazing. So you've gotten more than you possibly could get out of Jimmy Butler thanks to Eric Spoelstra. But, Eric Spoelstra can only make up for your mistakes for so long. You want to come up with a whole bunch of journeymen? All right, he'll give you a 31-10 second half and almost get you to the playoffs with a bunch of scrubs. But don't expect him to do it over and over again because it's a bunch of scrubs. And Bam and Tyler aren't stars. So what more do you want from him? He can't make players stars who are not stars. And Bam started to play like a star. And please, I don't want to hear that next year's the year and next year's the year. I'm tired of that already. If you were a star, you would have already shown it a couple of years ago. Not this year, a couple of years ago. You've had more than enough time, bro. Enough. You're a really good player, no doubt about it. He's what I said he is. He's a super role player. Really good player, super role player. Not a star. Not a star. And that's your problem. You couldn't find another star next to Jimmy Butler. And this is why we're in this position that we are today, and probably why you'll get a lot of mileage out of the Jimmy Butler acquisition, but you didn't get to completely maximize it because you didn't find somebody of his equal or better. That's what you needed, really. You didn't need somebody less than Jimmy Butler. You already have two guys that are less than Jimmy Butler. Like Jimmy Butler is a lower ring star, right? Let's be honest, right? Jimmy's not Wade, right? He's not really Alonzo. He's not really LeBron, right? He's not really that kind of star. He's the next level. He's the Robin. He's not Batman, he's Robin, but he's Batman here because you have no Batman. Let's be honest now. In this league, your star has to be a guy that can effortlessly shoot threes. That's not Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's game is, brother, he's got to work harder than everybody else because he's got to drive to the hoop and he's got to take contact and he's got to take a physical punishment. And it's just a 90s type game. It's a different game. He would have been a superstar in the 90s, actually, because that game would have flown a lot more in those days. But in this game nowadays, all superstars have got to be guys that can get threes, man, and easily, like effortlessly. And he's not that guy. So I love when Naira tells me, oh, he's been super efficient. That's great, bro, but he can't play a lot. And this is a team that needs a superstar that can play 80 games, 78 games, because they don't have a lot of room for error. Look at them. They're barely making the playoffs with Jimmy Butler playing at such an efficient rate. What do you think? If he doesn't miss, 18, 20 games, whatever he's missed, how many more games would they be up in the standings? You know, it only goes so far what you can do. That is your Acura Pembroke Pines Miami Heat and NBA report.